Good morning, Chag Someach. Today is Yom HaAtzma'ut, Israel's Independence Day, Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. I want to share with you one basic approach to today, Yom HaAtzma'ut, but from two different authors in two very different styles. And the first is from Rabbi Yehuda Amita. And he spoke on Yom HaAtzma'ut in 2001. That was during the Second Intifada. I don't want to make equivalences between now and then, but it was a time of great difficulty between Israel and those surrounding it. And so there is a certain similarity, not exactly, but a certain similarity to what's happening today and to trying to observe and celebrate Yom HaAtzma'ut within a context of who really feels like celebrating today. So this is what Rav Amita said. Some time ago, a number of weeks ago, months ago, we read in the Torah about the battle between the Jewish people and Amalek. Again, I do not mean to imply that the people of Gaza are Amalek. That's not what I'm getting at, but I'm talking about the Torah passage. But in fact, although we read about it a few months ago in the Torah, today is actually very close to the actual date, the anniversary of when it happened. Because that happened just a few days after the Jewish people left Egypt. Just a few days after the triumph of the splitting of the Red Sea and the Jewish people passing through and the complete destruction of the Egyptian army that was chasing after the Jews to kill them. And there's a deep irony in the difference between those two battles, the escape of the Jewish people from the army of Egypt through the splitting of the Red Sea on the one hand, and then just a few days later, the battle against Amalek. And the irony is that at the Red Sea, there was a miraculous event. The sea split. And there was a decisive victory. The army of the Mitzrim were utterly and decisively defeated. It was over. And as we say in Az Yashir, which we read on the seventh day of Pesach, and we say every morning in our prayers, the prayer of thanks and praise that the Jewish people sang immediately after this miracle, Shamu Am Yirgazun, the nations heard about this and they were afraid. Chil Achaz Yoshvei Polashas, Az Nivhalu Alofei Edom. The generals and the people who heard about this were trembling. Namogu kol yoshvei Canaan, all of the inhabitants of Canaan that would later be called Israel, they were melting away out of fear of the power and awe of God splitting the Red Sea and saving the Jewish people. Even 40 years later, we discussed this before, even 40 years later, when the Jewish people actually did enter the land of Israel, led by Yehoshua, they met a woman named Rachav in Yericho, the city of Jericho. And remember what she said to them. She said, Ki shamanu es asher hovish Hashem es me yam suf mibnehem. We heard about this. She's talking about something that happened 40 years ago in Yericho, in Israel. We heard about this, that your God, that God split the Red Sea. B'tzeis Mitzrayim, when you left Egypt. V'nishma v'yamas lovavenu. We heard about the awe and the power that God is leading you with, and our hearts melted. V'lo kama od ruach be'ish mipnechem. And there was no man, there was no person who had courage left because of you. It was shock and awe. And yet only days after that decisive triumph, there's another foe, another battle, but much different than the one just days before. Because when Amalek attacked, it was not a battle for Israel's survival. When Paro attacked, that would have been a question of Israel's survival. Had the Egyptian army caught up with the Jewish people and God had not split the Red Sea, it could very well have been that there would have been no Jewish people. But when Amalek attacked, it wasn't a battle for Israel's survival. The nation as a whole was not in danger. But it did harm many individuals. The Torah says, "Vayizanei b'cha kol hanechasholim acharecha." Amalek attacked your vulnerable ones. And the battle against Amalek was not decisive. There were ups and downs. The Torah describes, "Vayihi kasher yarim Moshe yado v'gavar Yisrael," when Moshe was hold up his hands, and at that moment the Jewish people, the Jewish army would be triumphing. V'kasher yaniach yado v'gavar Amalek. But if Moshe's hands came down, then the battle started to shift, with Amalek seeming to be ahead. We discussed what Moshe's hands have to do with it, but there were ups and downs. It was not decisive. And the outcome was far from conclusive. The Torah says, "Vayechalosh Yehoshua es Amalek." Yehoshua weakened Amalek. Yehoshua did not defeat Amalek. Yehoshua weakened Amalek. He did not vanquish them. He reduced their ability to harm Jews for that time. But we know that the army of Amalek attacked the Jewish people over and over again, over hundreds of years. It was not a decisive victory. Says Rav Amita, these two disparate battles set the pattern for all Israel's subsequent wars. In 1948, Israel fought a war for its independence. The sea was split again. Israel was created. The state of Israel, after 2,000 years, the state of Israel was created. On one of our missions to Israel, we visited Independence Hall in Tel Aviv, which was the former home of Mayor Dizengoff. If you ever have the chance, if you haven't been there, to go there and to take a tour. And we stood in the room in which that historic announcement was made to the world, and we heard the recording of the bracha that was made that day, the blessing, Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh, that we thank you, God, that you have allowed us to remain alive and sustained to be able to witness this day. Golda Meir later said that throughout the entire ceremony she was there, she was calm and composed during the speeches and the rhetoric. But when she heard that bracha, she began to cry, because she realized at that moment the spiritual and historic magnitude of what was happening, especially against the backdrop of the Holocaust, the establishment of a Jewish state is an absolute miracle. And with all its economic and military power, and of course spiritual strength and cultural wealth, what Israel has achieved in just 76 years is a clear, open miracle like the splitting of the Red Sea. And that is what we commemorate on Yom HaAtzma'ut. But today we also face a very different battle. Though the existence of the state is not in danger, our enemies have been able and are able to hurt many individuals, Nebuch. Despite our military superiority, that battle has been brought to us again. And our goal today in Israel, our hope, is to achieve what Yehoshua achieved against Amalek, to weaken or degrade our enemy's ability to harm us. Because the reality is, and this has always been the reality, that we want nothing more and we insist on nothing less than an end to the violence. That's all we care about. But as we slog through the current morass, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, we must remember today's events in the context of the splitting of the Red Sea. We must differentiate between the miracle equivalent to the splitting of the Red Sea that occurred on this date that we celebrate, even as at this moment we have a despondency, maybe even worse, over the current situation that we have. Gaza, the North, the West Bank, the anti-Semitism. But that cannot allow us to forget the miracle that is unfolding before our own eyes even today. And to remember and feel that poignant bracha that was made 76 years ago. Shechiyanu v'kiyamanu v'giyanu lazman hazeh. Zeh hayom asa Hashem. This is a day that was created by God. Nagila v'nismecha bo, and we have to rejoice, remembering that miracle, and remembering what is happening today is within the context of the battle Yehoshua led, which does not diminish from the miracle of 1948. I want to share a similar message, but in a very different style, a very different tone, from Rabbi Avraham Stav. I've quoted him to you before. He's an incredible scholar, writer, teacher, member of the IDF, son of Rabbi David Stav, who I've quoted to you many, many times before. And he wrote just a couple of days ago, it's difficult to find strength to celebrate this year. Much of what we have achieved, at least in recent years, suddenly seems like idle imagination. Despite the displays of bravery and determination, our sense of security and stability here have been dramatically undercut. The experience of partnership and togetherness in the media and political field was renewed for a few moments after Simchas Torah on October 7th. And then has been torn apart again in deeper and more painful ways than we could have imagined. In so many ways, rather than an atmosphere of a birthday, today we have a feeling of a yahrzeit. And indeed, it is permissible to grieve, not only over the individual lives that have been erased, but also over the things that have been lost to us as a people and a country. But please listen carefully. But when you look at it more deeply, Yom HaAtzma'ut, Israel's Independence Day, is not just a birthday. It is also a wedding anniversary. Listen to this story. He says, I remember how my uncle Moshe placed a heavy hand on my shoulder on the night of my wedding and took me aside. And his uncle said to him, remember this moment very well. Remember how much you love her now, your Kala, your bride. Remember this moment of your love. How much you wanted her when you gave her the ring under the chuppah, and in the years to come. And I promise you that there will be times that are not easy. You will return to this love on this night and awaken it within you. Rabbi Stav writes, just like a married couple flipping through the wedding album to find the memory that will ignite that spark of love, this is how we can celebrate Yom HaAtzma'ut today. Our celebration will not be focused on the joy of the present, but it will be a prayer, a celebration of faith in the impossible, a celebration of renewing a covenant of destiny, a dance that will continue, as Leonard Cohen wrote, until the end of love. My friends, it's a complicated day with competing emotions, and they are all valid. But let us not forget the miracle of this day. No matter what else is going on, the miracle of this day that equals the splitting of the Red Sea. And let us express Yom HaAtzma'ut in prayer, in gratitude, and recognizing the blessings that we have, because they are many. My friends, Chag Someach, I wish you a meaningful and good day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.